Hi, this is Reggie Mara. This video will be released on November 12th, 2025, and this is the fifth video in an ongoing series considering the damage being done by the traditional us versus them worldview in American history, but more broadly in global history. But this is about the United States of America. Today we're going to speak briefly about the foundational subjugations of women, Indigenous peoples, Africans, African Americans, and the poor in this country. By way of introduction, in the first video, we provided an overview of the trajectory that all of these videos will be taking. But more recently, we've given you an introduction to the ideas of shadow, what we mean by masculine and feminine energies, and how masculine and feminine energies and an us-centric worldview, an us versus them worldview, are currently manifesting and have historically manifested for almost 250 years as the shadow of this nation. So what millions of Americans deny, and again, that's what we mean by collective national shadow, arises through an unhealthy us-centric masculine energy and worldview. And the 9 elements of that shadow, and again, I'm just reviewing what we've done in the past 4 sessions here, are ignorance, arrogance, fear, bigotry, violence, greed, excess, bullying, and untrustworthiness. And there may be more, but those 9 are fairly easy to observe historically and currently, and easy to prove as well. More specifically, for today, these 9 elements have led historically and currently still do lead to the foundational subjugations of, again, women, Native Americans, Africans and African Americans, and the poor. And they've proven to be easily transferable. These 9 shadow traits are easily transferable nowadays to Muslims, to folks from Central and South America and parts of Asia, and just about anyone who does not identify as both white and heterosexual in the United States. I'm painting with a broad brush to get started, and we'll take these now one at a time. So women were not considered or mentioned in the Constitution, right? And if you think that's not true, you'll get your copy. I have mine here. They didn't get the right to vote on a national level until 50 years after formerly enslaved men got the right to vote. And parenthetically, in fairness to those formerly enslaved men, they got the legal right to vote, but they really weren't allowed to vote in the former Confederacy due to Jim Crow and poll taxes and lynchings, and right up until 1965 when the Voting Rights Act was passed. But even now, women are being discriminated against in the military by Pete Hegseth, and in terms of their control over their own bodies. All right, so that's a subjugation. I know a lot of this for many of you is common, but obviously for tens of millions of Americans, it's either not known or it is okay. Indigenous peoples, also known as Native Americans and or American Indians. Effectively, the Europeans and then the Americans committed genocide against over 500 Native nations on the North American continent, and that happened in Central America and South America as well, but we're concerned now with the United States of America. We betrayed every treaty we made with them, and again, when we say with them, that's misleading because we made treaties with specific tribes or nations, not with the broad population across the entire continent at one time. And then we took their land by betraying the treaty. So again, that's common history, becoming less common perhaps in Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, and other states who are pushing back against telling the truth historically. Subjugation of Africans first, taken from their homes, making the Atlantic Passage. If they survived, they were enslaved when they got here, and they gave birth to people who were born into slavery, and then they became African Americans. So enslavement, Jim Crow, lynchings, And again, under Pete Hegseth, military discrimination, especially against higher officers. The fourth group, I like to joke, even though it's not a joke, that it's a half. There are 3.5 foundational subjugations, and that's the poor, including poor white men back in the 17 and 1800s. If you happen nowadays to be an American citizen, right, or a documented immigrant, and you're relatively poor, you're working in a low-paying job, and you look like you're from a Caribbean, South American, Central American, or Asian nation in 2025 America, you stand a good chance of being accosted, arrested, detained, and even deported, right, by the Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and Tom Homan immigration police force, right? So every one of these examples depicts a powerful, ignorant, arrogant, us dominating a less powerful them in the name of freedom and equality. So it's an us, an unhealthy us versus them tradition in the United States. And again, it's true globally, but this video and my work is concerned with the current state of the United States of America. So again, 3.5 foundational subjugations based on an us versus them worldview. Right? Women, Indigenous peoples, Africans, and then African Americans, the poor, and that particular subjugation worldview is now being transferred to anyone who looks like they might be, if they look poor, if they're working low-paying jobs, that they look like they might be Muslim or Asian or from a Caribbean, Central, or South American Asian in this country, they have something to worry about at the hands of the immigration police, who are not going after the worst of the worst, as they said they were, although they might pick up some of them as well. But they're on the record now for arresting American citizens and documented immigrants, many of whom are targeted because the government doesn't like the things that they're saying out loud. Right? That you've all heard of the First Amendment. So thank you for listening. In the next video, I'll be speaking a bit about cultural givens, or how we transfer or translate our worldviews from generation to generation, both our healthy worldviews and our unhealthy worldviews. Right, so thank you, as always, for listening. I'm Reggie Mara. This video will be released on November 12th, 2025, and I appreciate your listening in and sharing it as you see fit.